Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is a solo hot tent trip in a very wet forest. So as you guys can see, it is snowing off and on. It's dripping water. Obviously I'm taking my jacket off, so that means it's a very warm day today. However, tonight is supposed to go down well below freezing, and in my opinion, this is the worst and most dangerous time for anyone who's looking to get started in winter camping to actually go camping. I would much rather it be negative 20 degrees Celsius and stay cold rather than go through a warm into a freeze, because all this wetness around here is going to freeze. Now, one thing that I do need to mention, I did bring my shovel, and that is because I am on top of over a foot of snow, but the top 4 or 5 inches of that is solid ice. So it looks like I'm on top of the ground right now. I'm actually, like I said, 1.5 feet above the ground, and I keep breaking through at random spots. I do have a titanium wood stove with me, and I brought an oven, as I do have a goal on this trip, and that is to enjoy this beautiful snow-covered forest and cook a great meal right here inside of the tent. Even if it gets wet, it'll be nice and cozy in here. But I did bring the shovel because I'm gonna have to shovel out some of this area, but I don't want to clear it all out, okay? So it's very important for me. I may clear out the vestibule area, which will drop down 1.5 feet, and then I can actually sit in the doorway of the tent, and then it'll go over down into a well area, essentially, which will put the stove 1.5 feet below where I'm laying, and heat rises, so that means I'm going to be in the heat channel, whether I'm sitting or laying down, which is a rare opportunity in hot tents, because typically when you lay down, you're at the same level as the stove. Heat rises and you're a little bit cold. Now that's not a major issue for me because I never burn my stove overnight. I bring a good winter rated pad and a good winter rated sleeping bag. That's how I stay warm. And talking about the sleeping pad, you'll notice that I took my sleeping bag out and I threw it in the tent right away. My sleeping pad, it can get wet on the outside and it does not hold water. So I simply bang it off, shake it off, nice and dry, throw it in the tent. That's where it'll stay for the day. So carrying on from here, I've got to get the shovel to good use, shovel out this vestibule area, and then we'll assemble the stove, get that situated, and then it's going to be good old-fashioned wet firewood collection time. So let's get shoveling, guys. Alright guys, so now that we're done shoveling, you can clearly see the benefit of doing this. I can sit down inside of the tent, the stove will be placed way down here. I did bring a chimney pipe that's usually about 1 foot to 2 feet longer than what I usually use with this tent, and I think this will work great. We'll have a nice area here to stack firewood, have the stove down there, the oven, loads of clearance, and that's another thing. If you're going to be putting an oven on top of your tent, you need more vertical space. So I've got it here, it'll fit totally fine. And these little shovels, no matter the brand, are worth their weight in gold to pack, guys. I bring it a lot. I rarely use it. Today I used it and I am out of breath. That ice is heavy and thick. So I'm just going to do a little bit more of a cleanup here, scrape the edges, and get the stove together, get that popped in here, give you guys a quick look at that, and then gather up some firewood for a hot drink. Alright guys, so that is pretty awesome. This is the first time I'm using this oven. It is brand spanking new, and I figured I'd bring you guys out, do a little bit of a product testing, and share it with you guys this time. So usually I do this stuff at home on my own, but I was itching to get out and use this, so here we are. So it is a titanium oven, and it's not a folding oven, which I really like about it. It actually comes apart in individual pieces. That way you can actually split the pieces up if you are hiking with a friend and share the weight a little bit. But it does have the oven gauge in the front for the temperature. I've installed 2 racks because I'm going to be cooking dinner in here. More on that later on. And I'm going to need both racks. And what I like is the bottom is totally wide open. So all of the heat is going to loft right inside of there, which is going to be pretty awesome. And it is designed to fit on all of the mini Kamali stoves. So that is pretty awesome. We're going to see together tonight how this works, and we'll find out tomorrow what I think about it. But I will mention I do also have the large oven. So there are 2 sizes. There's a small and there's a large. It fits on all the larger stoves. I will be bringing that out in another episode, but today's goal was come out, cook an awesome meal, and have fun in the snow. So it is now time for firewood collection. let's get to it. Alright guys, just came back from collecting birch bark. I did have to walk around a little bit because at first I found some bark off of a wet tree and it was quite wet. And I did bring it back to the tent, so I'm going to dry this stuff out overnight next to the stove. But while I was walking around, I actually found a big chunk of birch bark that was just begging to be peeled off of a tree, and it's actually dry. So I'm going to start the fire with this. I do have a whole bunch of firewood cut and split, so I've got some that are not cut and split, the rounds inside that I've got to tend to later on. And I did go ahead and split up a whole bunch on the other side of the tent, and then I did a bunch of really small pieces to get the fire going. Everything is wet though, so I'm going to have to go pretty heavy on the birch bark, I think, just to get the fire ripping, start drying some of this wood out, and then from there, it'll take off no problem. But for now, we are going to go heavy on the birch bark. I usually don't recommend doing this because it does foul the stove a little bit, but I know later on it's going to be burning really hot and clean, and it'll self-clean itself, like the glass and the chimney pipe and stuff like that. So we're going to do what we got to do this time, load it up, throw a match in there, and get it fired up. So while I'm doing this, I will mention that regular viewers may recognize this location because last winter I actually came and slept right here. I think it was like -25 or -26 Celsius, and I camped here with just a sleeping pad and a sleeping bag. It's actually the same sleeping bag that I have with me today, my Outdoor Vitals, but it was a different pad. I brought my Thermarest, and I stayed right here, and I actually harvested all the firewood off of the tree where I harvested from today. Coming out here knowing that I was going to have to shovel down, as I did, and I just had this spot in the back of my mind thinking the tent would fit here perfectly, and I'm glad I did come here because hiking through this forest where I was going to go would have been a nightmare without snowshoes because I don't have snowshoes yet. So doing what I can, guys, and having fun doing it. So I want to get this stove loaded up. I do have a couple feather sticks here and smaller pieces cut up, all softwood. Going to load it in there, toss in a match, get it ripping. All right, guys, I've got my hot drink on the go. I went with an instant coffee, a little tea bag coffee. It's actually ground coffee. It's not instant, but it's more of an instant way of me to make it versus grinding it up. I didn't want to bring a whole lot of gear on this trip where I am packed a little bit heavy as it is, where I did bring a stove, a shovel, and an oven, and a couple of other items here and there. So I had to shave weight where I could. Otherwise, I would have been a tank on the trail, basically, especially with no snowshoes. So with all the gear that I have, I didn't weigh anything, but I want to say I'm probably in the 35-pound range, maybe even the 40, honestly, because I did bring 1 liter of water. Even though I got all the snow around me, I knew that I was only going to bring my cup. So I did not bring a 750 or a kettle, so melting snow inside of the cup would have just taken too long. So I did bring a little bit of water just to get me started. Later on tonight, I am going to have to boil water in the cup, and this is my only container that I brought with me that is metal. So that is my boiling vessel, just a 450 ml titanium cup. So right now, sitting in the vestibule area, obviously you guys can see I do have a chair, which is the ground. My pants are drying out really quickly, and it is actually really warm sitting right here. And this is what I love about deep snow that allows you to camp like this. Digging out the vestibule is always going to be worth doing it. The heat is going to rise up, and this entire area is going to be super warm tonight. Talking about warm and temperature, I do not have my thermometer with me on this trip. It was a casualty on a recent trip, unfortunately. So I do know the weather forecast, though, and it is supposed to go down to -8 degrees Celsius tonight. And this afternoon, right now, it is forecasted to be about -3. And I can feel the cold air starting to roll in, but obviously it's not negative because it is still wet all over the place. And of course the tent is going to be warm up here, but I can see water down on the oven. I can see water on the wood. It's not minus yet, but I can feel cold air starting to roll in the forest. I'm not very far from the ocean. I should mention that I'm probably about 3 kilometers away from the ocean, so that is going to bring in a brisk breeze later on this evening. So I'm looking forward to that with this stove in this tent, just rocking out some heat and having a good old time. So I'm going to chill out right now with my coffee, and later on I'm going to have to get the wood stove up there. I think I'm pretty much squared away for firewood. I don't think I'll have to do any more firewood prep as I don't burn the stove overnight. But right now I'm just going to relax, my coffee, and then I'm probably going to start on supper shortly after. So cheers, guys. Enjoying the snow out here. All right, guys, coming inside of the tent, it is totally dark out right now. As I was getting a couple photos and captures outside before settling in here, there was a little white rabbit, and he came right by the corner of the tent, and it's on camera. If you guys can look at the last clip that when I came inside of the tent, you'll notice something moving in the background. That was a rabbit, and he was right next to me. I turned around after I moved the camera to another location. He was like 10 feet from me, just staring at me. And then I got some video of him hiding underneath of a tree, so that's pretty cool. There's a bunch of rabbits around here, all kinds of tracks and trails and stuff, so it's always nice when the wildlife isn't afraid of you. It actually comes up and welcomes you like that, so it's pretty neat. I am inside now, obviously, so I'm going to get my snow pants off and just kind of get all this outdoor gear off, get nice and comfortable in here. The temperature is coming up very nicely. Outside, it is cold. I know it's definitely below zero now because there's ice forming on the outside of the tent. So it is definitely warm in here, and with the stove down there, as predicted earlier, guys, all the heat is just lofting up here. It is very, very comfortable to sit, and it's even comfortable to lay, because even on my knees, right where my body's going to be laying at this level, it is very nice and warm. So I'm going to get changed out of this clothing, get my boots set next to the fire so they'll dry out overnight, and I will bring you guys inside the tent a little bit closer, and we'll go from there. Alright guys, so I'm all changed into some fresh, dry clothing. Feeling really, really good right now. I'm sitting up in the heat. I'm super warm. The fire's crackling and going. I had this light off a second ago, and the whole area was just glowing down there with all the windows and the stove and the snow trench. It's a good feeling, guys. It's just awesome. So I'm going to be lounging inside of the tent late this evening. I do have some movies saved on my phone, as I always do. And looking at the stove, got my wood lined up down there, my boots lined up. Everything's going to dry out, so morning time will come. We'll spark up the stove again and get it nice and warm in here. But for tonight, I'm going to take it to myself. I'm going to enjoy a few movies, and I will catch up with you guys first thing in the morning. Peace out. Good night, guys. Good morning, everybody. It is a beautiful morning out here in the winter forest. Man, I love winter camping. Waking up and being in the crisp cold and then having a fire just warm your boots up is a beautiful feeling out here. So, one thing on last night I will mention. It got below freezing, but it didn't get below freezing inside of the tent. My water did not freeze, and I had this inside of the sleeping area with me all night. I did not burn the stove all night. I was up a little late though. I probably went to bed at about midnight and woke up really early in the morning. So probably about a good 6-7 hour sleep, I'd say. Nothing crazy, but it didn't freeze. So I woke up this morning, lit the stove, got my boots down there, preheated those nice and warm, and hot cup of coffee on the go. And it is absolutely beautiful out here. Looking up in the sky, it looks very gray and overcast. So who knows, might get a little bit of snow today. One thing I will mention, last night I had a little visitor come into camp, a little rabbit. I think that rabbit was on the menu last night because I heard the most horrific rabbit squeal and scream last night, and it echoed through the forest, and I mean like rabbit squeal. And then the coyote started yipping and yapping not far from here, so more in this direction. It was very dark out, it was starting to get cold, and just the squeal of a rabbit. So yeah, our little bunny I don't think made it, but that's the way nature goes, and that's part of the fun of being out here in nature, is watching things take its course. So anyways guys, hot cup of coffee on the go. I'm gonna sit here, enjoy this, get another piece of wood in the fire. It looks like I'm gonna pretty much burn out all of my wood today, so I do have a little supply down here left over from last night, but I think I'm just gonna cram it all in there and enjoy a little bit of the heat because it is cold this morning. I would say it's probably -3, maybe -4 Celsius outside, but of course it's gonna start warming up. I will leave my water outside, and perhaps, maybe that'll freeze. Toss it right up there. Maybe that'll freeze while we're sitting here and I'll have a better idea of what the actual temperature is, but I could say walking around it feels like it was -3, -4 when I first woke up. But anyways, cheers guys, enjoy some coffee. All right, so I've got everything packed up inside of the backpack. The camp area looks pretty decent other than a big hole dug in the snow, of course, but can't really get around that. Everything fit in here, kind of. It was a little bit of a struggle, but there's less food in there, so that's always a bonus. But ultimately carrying that much gear that's bulky, it's gonna take a few minutes, but I gotta say, I think it looks pretty good. It's not very large. That's the bonus of doing a sleeping bag outside of the stuff sack, is you can cram it all over the place and all those little nooks and crannies that are vacant. So everything's in there. The trip went really, really well. I had a great time cooking. I had awesome experience last night listening to the wildlife take its course. And all in all, the trip was amazing. So thank you guys for joining me on this. I'm going to get this on my back, get that camera packed away, and start heading on down the trail. Leave your questions and comments down below, and peace out. I'll catch you in the next adventure.